All right, peeps, back again for the next COVID Cabal. We're here. We are here yet again. Oh, look at this. Here making a mess. What we're doing. I've got the. Hey, Kate, can you get me a napkin, please? Just like a. It's like a paper towel. Let's put a little bit of this Fonta Fretta here. Thanks, babe. So. Well, no, probably not. I'm probably not going to be. I'm not giving up on that. By the way, I'm not giving up on the hair. Not giving up on the hair. The beard is just. I'm trying it out. I mean, I'm not going to keep it. I'm not going to keep it. Not really a big fan of it, but figure I'll do maybe leave it throughout the month of November. Maybe we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to see if the barber does a good job with it. Maybe he can spruce it up or something. But guys, so back in New York, no formal wine school today. We're going to be doing New Zealand when I'm back in Jersey. And then we're going to do Italy properly after that. But right now, what I have here is Fontana Fredda. Okay, this is Method Classico. This is basically made like champagne. It's Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. It's a little rosé. This is made from the Barolo region, and that is probably the most French-like wine in all of Italy. Barolo Nebbiolo is a very French-like grape. It's kind of difficult to explain what that means, but there's a different sort of style of winemaking that Piemonte, which is in the northwest of Italy, so it also borders France. Historically, at times, it was part of the Kingdom of France. So it's kind of got an interesting cultural area. So they have a thing there called this is called Alta Longa. This is the location, but they make some very small amount of champagne. Well, basically, it's basically champagne. So we're gonna try this. And it's lovely. It's lovely. Although it's not champagne. It doesn't taste as good as champagne. No doubt about that. But it's good. You see, I got the Gatsby glass. I got the Gatsby glass here. All right, peeps. How have you guys been doing the last couple of days? We got some big stuff happening. Okay, let's first talk about. We talked last on Thursday, so let's talk about Friday the 13th. Okay, and the energy shifts we had here. Friday the 13th is historically kind of like a cursed day. Like bad things happen on Friday the 13th, right? There's all sorts of, what is this? There's also, people are like afraid. There's horror movies around it. Now, I'm not going to give you guys like a crazy background on it, but Friday the 13th comes from the Knights Templar, okay? So the Knights Templar, when they were basically oppressed by the church, and you can kind of get into the whole history of the Knights Templar and their connection to the Illuminati and everything. But the Knights Templar, when the leaders, and God, I'm blanking on the guy's name. I'm blanking on his name. But basically, finally, the leaders of the Knights Templar, because they were basically accused of doing all sorts of satanic worship. They're supposed to be, they're crusaders, right? And it's kind of an interesting story. I mean, I'll give you a little bit of background. I've studied the Templar on my own through official Jean de Molay. Thank you, Jean de Molay. The history of them is very interesting. They were the second of the Crusader groups that were added basically during the Crusades. The first ones you had were the Hospitallers, Knights of the Hospital of St. John, which continue to exist today. They were basically, they were to fight in the Crusades, and also they were to effectively, basically do hospital treatment for sick people. And then you had the Templars, which were created after the First Crusade, and their origins are quite interesting. Like, how did they come about? How did this happen? And the official history narrative paints it like they just 7 people. Maybe one of you guys, Montar. I'm forgetting the names. It's been a while. I didn't prep for it here. One of you guys can say it. The guy who started the Templars. It was Luc de Montagnan or something like that. But they basically, it's not Monbec. They basically kind of came out of nowhere. There was like seven of them more or less, and it centered around this one guy, and they just suddenly became very very wealthy and very very powerful, and they basically didn't just simply become crusaders, right? Because they were crusaders, but they also had to protect the Temple Mount, right? They're supposed to protect, and they're supposed to protect pilgrims who were heading to the Holy Land. So there's a lot of interesting history with the Templars and the Hospitallers. Later on, you had a third primary crusading group that got added around the time of the Third Crusade. Those were the Teutonic Knights, right? Teutonic Knights, and I don't want to go too crazy with this history. I don't. Maybe you guys want me to, but the Teutonic. There's a lot of minor. There were a lot of minor crusading groups, but we just focus on these top three. So you have the Hospitallers, you have the Templars, and then you have the Teutonic Knights. Teutonic Knights didn't have, because they came in later than the first two, and also because they kind of got pulled in with a lot of intrigue between the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, Hohenzollern, and they had lots of issues with each other. And the Teutonic Knights were kind of aligned more because they were German. They were aligned more with the Holy Roman Emperor, whereas the Templars and the Hospitallers were more aligned with the Pope. But they all fought together in the Third Crusade. But anyway, after the Third Crusade, and as things sort of really devolved in the Holy Land, you had a lot of intrigue around the Templars and a lot of later crusades, which were just failures, like things fell apart. And basically, Templars, there's different theories on this, right? The Templars have become very, very wealthy. And this is one of the conspiracy aspects, is how do they become so wealthy and powerful so quickly? And there's a lot of theories that they took control of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and maybe did they find like Solomon's gold, right? A lot of people, when you get into cabal conspiracies, they also talk about the Templars got found the Holy Grail, right? And they protected the Holy Grail, and then you can get more into esoteric Christianity and stuff, that the Holy Grail was actually Mary Magdalene. The Da Vinci Code plays off of this a lot, and talks about Mary Magdalene and how actually the Holy Grail was the bloodline of Jesus. And then there's a whole thing about how actually Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene, and they had a child, and the child was hidden away, and the Templars kind of protected the bloodline. It gets very interesting. Some people are more on the side of the Templars, that the Templars were doing good things. Others describe it like that they were blackmailed, that they were basically just destroyed. But the allegations against the Templars that led to their, basically destruction from the church, was basically that they had been having, how do I put this? That they had been doing all sorts of things that we would now associate with a lot of these satanic groups. So they claim to be Christian, etc., but actually they would do things where they'd spit on Jesus, and there was all sorts of gay sex and stuff and fornication, and that they had actually become they kept it all secret, and that there's actually all this satanic stuff. And people denied it, but then when they were tortured, they admitted it. And so anyway, this was a long-winded way of saying there's more about the Templars that we could talk about in these different groups, right? It's kind of interesting, but the Templars and the leaders of the Templars, Jean de Molay, was finally burned at the stake on Friday the 13th. And he cursed the King of France, who, there's a lot of arguments that the King of France was against the Templars because the Templars were basically moneylenders, and the King of France was not good with managing his money. He was bankrupt. And so he was, and so he wanted to basically confiscate Templar lands. Was that the story, or was there more to it? Hard to say exactly. But the Templars and a lot of their traditions, the Templars in Spain and Portugal remained because they were still fighting a crusade there. They just simply changed their name. The Templars elsewhere either got absorbed into the Hospitallers, a lot of the lands, and frankly, a lot of the people got absorbed into the Hospitallers. And arguably remained underground. A lot of the conspiracy stuff is about, revolves around this. And the Da Vinci Code talks about it, that they had kept secret and protected the bloodline of Jesus, which was important. So anyway, that was a little side, that was a little tangent for you guys. But Friday the 13th has had a lot of occult symbolism and power, and there's questions about this, like 13 is an unlucky number. But here's the thing about magic. Okay, here's the thing about magic. You have these certain days which have a lot of occult power, or a lot of symbols that have a lot of occult power, right? Like the Star of David, like the swastika, right? These are symbols. They the more you kind of learn about these things, you understand. They represent different spirals. They represent they basically represent energy in different forms, or like the basis of the universe. It's a real rabbit hole, and it's really interesting. But a lot of, like, the cross, right? If the cross folded up as a cube, people talk about the cube and the Saturn cube. There's a lot of different stuff here. Okay, but a lot of things with 13 is that you have the 12 disciples and you have Jesus, and so there's actually a lot of positive symbolism to the number. But like so many of these symbols and so many of these numbers, that they've been taken and they've been turned into they've been used from CABAL and from the acute basically to be able to channel negative energy. They harvest energy from these things. Saturn's cube related to Metatron's cube, I don't know exactly. But so what happened yesterday energetically was that number was taken back. They lost basically control over it. This was unlike other Friday the 13th in the past. This Friday the 13th was good, and it represented a big shift. Okay, and it's no coincidence that on that day Mars went direct. Okay, Mars went direct. We talked about this, right? That's the beginning of outside warfare, and you're going to see that really accelerate next week. After talking astrologically speaking, we had the new moon. A lot of energy comes in with that. I expect next week to be the CABAL is going to start to take a pummeling, and people are going to start to realize this week. We started to get the media talking about how, well, there's going to be, there's fraud, but it didn't make a difference, right? They started to admit, okay, yeah, there was some fraud, but like it didn't matter, and this is stupid, and Trump's lost, blah, blah, just give up. Next week, it's going to start, the narrative is going to shift. And by the end of the week, everyone's going to know it's going to the courts. But they're going to be saying that, well, we can't win, they can't throw out these votes because people are going to get disenfranchised. You're going to see the narrative change, but there's going to be a lot more fear. And you're going to start to see the left be like, wait a minute. As usual, Trump doesn't just give up. As usual, you don't just win this. You don't just steal something from Trump. You don't just steal victory from Trump. Okay? And today we had a really great example of that with the Million MAGA March. Million MAGA March. Like literally 1 million people in Washington, D.C. The entire city pretty much filled up. Super peaceful, tons and tons of love with that. So about new Big Dick Anon update. Yeah. So apparently all of these different like Big Dick Anon, VCAT Anon, I don't know what VCAT stands for, but they're all kind of, their storylines are all coming together. They're all hitting the same point, which is that, Trump has it all. He has it all. All this stuff was monitored. We talked about this. Guys, can you believe it's been like a week since, some of the panic periscopes? How much different it is. 1 week. How much different it is now. And think about next week and think about the week after. It's all coming out. We have the stuff with Dominion. So we know that Dominion was owned by Smartinex, right? Which was owned by, was it Syntec? Okay, so Syntec was connected. First off, it shared a building with the Tides Foundation, which is a Soros organization. They shared like the same floor. Okay, and we also know that Syntec was, I believe, owned partially by Soros's group, and Syntec was also there's a ton of stake in Syntec from Microsoft and Bill Gates himself. So in this company, the software for Dominion was used to steal elections in Venezuela. And there's tons and tons of Cuban and Venezuelan money connected to this. So you had these servers, which were, the company was based in Barcelona, but then the servers were apparently in Frankfurt. And now there's evidence that there was a raid on that and that the servers were taken. Now, this is like a Texas congressman. And, people are trying to confirm or deny that. Syntec said that didn't actually happen. But then, then their website got shut down. So it's tough to, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors here. But guys, we are under Trump tie. Maybe I'll wear a Trump tie. If you can, if one of you guys can find me a good Trump tie, maybe I'll get one. Louis Gohmert, right? I think 1st District, Texas. So they got smashed. They got absolutely smashed, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And they keep what is the only real setback we maybe had? The only real setback is the Georgia recount, which is like a fake recount, right? Except, is it really a setback? Because everybody knows about it. Everybody knows it's fake. And so you realize what's going to happen is that they're not going to be able to go through with it. They're going to have to do it the right way. And this is what happens. Every single time, at this point, we are so awakened. Every single time they try to lie, every single time they try to cheat, everybody gets on them. And everybody knows about it. And they break. They break, right? And this is the whole thing. Why was Dominion being used in Georgia? Well, Governor Kemp, who's a loser, but his chief of staff was basically a lobbyist for Dominion, okay? And Secretary of State was connected to this very heavily. You just have so much corruption in the government, and it's getting smoked out, guys. I'm very happy that these people are revealing themselves because it just puts a target on their back. Let's get them all. We don't want to do this half-assed. We want to get every single one of them. And I'm telling you this, the Supreme Court's not happy. Alito is not happy. Alito's not very happy that he gave an order to Pennsylvania and they ignored it. Guys, you do not ignore a Supreme Court order. They're going to try to claim that they can't throw out these ballots in Pennsylvania. We're talking like 500, 600,000, maybe more ballots. They're going to claim they can't throw them out because, we're going to disenfranchise voters. Well, guess what? They broke every single law. And not only did they break every single law, they did it with the Supreme Court telling them to stop. So even if afterwards they whine and say, well, you're throwing out people's votes, which isn't even true, but it doesn't matter. You can't lie like that. You can't lie. You can't do it. Yeah, SCOTUS can award the state to Trump on fraud, right? I mean, I hope it doesn't come to that. I would prefer them to just throw out the ballots and to deal with the voting system, because I think people should be able to see how many people voted for Trump in Pennsylvania. Trump won the state by at least 8 points, probably closer to 10. It was a wipeout, an absolute wipeout. It was a wipeout across the country. And we're going to see this continue to expand further and further and further. We're going to deal with the swing states, and then it's going to get bigger than that. It's going to start to spread across the country. They've already noticed it that it was in Harris County in Texas, which is either a suburb of it's either right outside of, it's connected to either Austin or Houston. I can't remember. So yeah. So right now, yeah. Well, he won the popular vote. I mean, he won the popular vote. Houston, yeah, okay, Houston. So he won the popular vote. No question about it. The question is just to what degree. And the software stuff, guys, that's easy. That's easy to figure out. That's easy to fix. It's then in certain swing states, all the stuff with the ballots that came in after, that's easy to fix. But the other things, they're going to get taken care of, but it's going to be a little bit slower. There's some ballots that are going to be lost. We can't get everything. And it's seeming more and more like all that stuff about, various ballots being, how do I put this? How you had all these ballots that had the QRS codes. Maybe that's still true. It seems less likely now to be the big issue. It seems less likely now to be the big issue. Are my parents proud of my conspiracies? My parents are proud of my conspiracies because they know I'm very intelligent and not a dumb fuck like most people. Like most people who just kind of eat what they're spoon fed, and they come here and desperately try to troll. I'm about to block you, by the way, but I just wanted to tell you that you're a dumb fuck. See these people. Think about this for a second. They come on these periscopes. They still want to say, they keep saying, "Cope, just give up, no, Cope, no, give up. You guys got to give up. How does it feel? You believe in conspiracies. You just got to give up." I don't need to state my credentials for people. It doesn't matter. Nobody needs credentials to understand the truth. They just need to have an open mind. And I am really, I have to admit, there's a part of me that's looking forward to seeing the pain that's going to come for these people, just because they're so fucking annoying to deal with all the time. I know it's not high. That's not like the highest vibration thing to say. I wish them luck in their waking up process. But in all honesty, I think that we're all just fucking tired of them. We're just tired of these people who are stupid and arrogant. We're tired of them. We're tired of people who, how dumb do you have to be to think that Joe Biden got millions and millions and millions of more votes than Obama? How dumb do you have to be to think that? How dumb do you have to be to think that happened, but it only happened in certain cities after the election? They don't care, though. They don't care. They just don't want somebody to pop their bubble. Well, guess what? The bubble's getting popped. It's getting popped, guys. It's getting popped. Nothing they can do about it. So it's funny to have them come out. They're so adamant about saying, "Oh, you're wrong." You have that guy from Smarkets. You guys just, Trump's just a sore loser. Oh, no. Trump is a winner. Trump doesn't lose. Trump never loses. He never loses. He always wins. Don't call a guy who always wins a sore loser. Show a little bit more respect, That's the thing. Show a little bit more respect. I would appreciate it more if they're like, "Well, you know what? I didn't want Trump to win. I don't think he won, but I know you can't count him out." That's an honest statement. I know Trump's not going to give up on this lightly. He never does. Honest statement. Saying, "No, Trump's just a sore loser." No. So whatever. We're going to see what happens to him. Yeah, when it comes to the actual popular vote, to the electoral votes, I can tell you guys, for all my bets, there's only 1 second. Kate, can you say 10-1? 10 to 1's fine for us. Kate? You can. I know people are saying 10. You can say 10. We're just talking about something for birthing class tomorrow. Out of all the bets, and they're going to honor all of them, guys. So don't worry about this stuff. They're going to honor them all. In the end, they're going to have to honor them all in the end, because otherwise they're not going to be a company anymore. No one will work with them. No one will do anything with them, and they're going to get sued out of oblivion anyway. They know they're going to lose it in court, so they're going to pay it out. So don't worry about that. Understand that a lot of these places, they don't want to admit it yet because they have Trump derangement syndrome themselves, and also they don't want to kind of entertain something that they still haven't come to terms with happening. But out of all the bets I put, I actually think there's only one I'm going to lose, and that's the one that says Trump gets between 320 and I think it's like 320 and 370 electoral votes. I bet I get that one wrong because I bet in the end he gets more. I'm okay with getting that one wrong. So it'll be funny. It'll be funny. I'm looking forward to it. But we have a serious month ahead of us. A serious month, all right? So you guys got to... And actually, we're going to use that. We're going to use that to talk about the next thing, just to kind of make sure everybody stays focused on this, okay? Stop asking when for all these details. We do have some hard deadlines. We know things are going to happen. Okay, and what are those hard deadlines? Well, we know, for instance, that things with Trump have to get resolved by the 14th, right? We know that because that's when the Electoral College meets. Okay, so we know that when it comes to Trump becoming president, we know that that's going to be taken care of by the 14th. Okay. I think that Congress has until January to get figured out. So, which is one of the reasons why I feel like there's going to be more and more, there's going to be some lag stuff as they continue to figure out individual races. In terms of people getting arrested, you're going to see people get arrested. They're going to be mostly low level now. The big stuff is going to be coming down the line, probably into the new year. All right. So I know everybody wants it to be finished, but honestly, let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy it. Let's try to enjoy. We don't want it all to happen at once, right? We want to have some fun here. We want to enjoy the ride. Okay. We're going to embrace the tension, enjoy the ride. There is so much going on. Trump is dealing with literally a communist infiltration of the government, a complete takeover of the media, and frankly, certain branches of the military. There are aspects or parts of the military that are aligned with the cabal. Why did we get rid of Esper, right? Well, Esper was keeping us in Afghanistan, but Esper was also a cabal. Esper was the one who implemented Dominion voting servers in Georgia under some like voting I forget the exact act. There's like a voting aid act or whatever. Okay, so there are parts of the military, especially with a lot of the generals, upper staff, upper brass, who are cabal. And he has to clear this entire thing out. This is not an easy thing to do. And to do it in a way that makes it so that the public can really see it. To make it so that there's as little collateral damage as possible to the country. Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. But he's going to pull it off. He's going to pull it off. But so, given this, people are like, well, I wanted the arrest to happen before. It's not about your fucking needs. It's not about like, I want this, I want it to be over. It's not about that. No one gives a fuck. What matters is that this is done correctly and that the country doesn't fall apart in the process. That's what matters. Your feelings about this being over with don't matter. So if it takes more time and we have to be patient in order to avert a civil war, we're going to wait and we're going to do it very, very delicately and very, very slowly. That's just the reality. If you, like, again, when you feel tension, it's the same thing with talking to a girl. You feel tension. Tension can either be like, I can't. Tension can either be like, this is too much. I'm so anxious. I'm so nervous. Or it can be excitement, right? Like if you go talk to a girl and you don't feel a little nervous, a little twinge, then maybe you're not talking to a girl you're actually attracted to, because that tension is actually the attraction that's going on there. That's a bit of that. And you want to enjoy that. You want to learn to enjoy it. It's the same thing going on right here, guys. It's the same thing. So much fun stuff ahead. There's going to be ups and downs. People were getting really bummed out yesterday evening when we had a slew. And like, let's read between the lines. They're all coming out at the same time. They're saying Arizona lawsuits drop, Pennsylvania lawsuits dismissed, Georgia recounts fake, and everyone's like, it's ending. Trump can't do it. No, media told us. Trump's screwed. It's not going to come out in the open. Come on, guys. Come on. We're stronger than that. I'm not going to say it's not annoying. And again, I'm getting really tired of these demons. I'm tired of them lying. I'm really getting tired of them. I think we're all tired of them. We're all sick of it. We're sick of listening to them. We're sick of being bombarded with their crap. But not much longer. It's better to laugh at it. It's better to laugh at them when they tell you these fake, stupid stories. Where they tell you like about a lawsuit that was dropped. Lawsuit that was dropped because it was irrelevant to the larger lawsuit, right? That happened in Arizona. It's like, oh, lawsuit was dropped. The lawsuit was like dealing with like 200 ballots. Like there's a lot of other things going on here. And they have, NPR's analyst says there's no chance. Federal prosecutors said that there was the lawsuit didn't have a chance of succeeding. Like, do you understand how easy it is either to A, make this up, B, to get opinion commentary from one of your stooges in the media who's an expert, or 3, to find one of your compromised, one of the cabal compromised individuals who are judges, prosecutors, who are throughout our entire government, and to have them make a statement. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't make any difference at all. But here's the thing that does matter, is that they're saying this stuff because they're afraid, okay? They're saying it because they're afraid. That's why they're telling you there's no chance, because that's all they can do. All they really can do at this point is demoralize you. They have no other power. They don't have the military. They don't have the Supreme Court. And we have tons and tons of evidence. We have overwhelming evidence. Okay? All they can do is tell you to give up. That's it. I would honestly not believe a single thing that they tell you, because there may be little twists and turns on the journey, but fundamentally, does anybody here actually believe that Trump's giving up, and that Trump, with his overwhelming evidence, with the courts, with the military, do you honestly think that that Trump's just going to say, oh, well, there's no chance. There's no chance of winning here? Does that seem likely? When you have all the advantages, does that seem likely? People have described this as a game of poker, and that Trump's being, keeping it to his chest. He's got a royal flush. He's keeping it to his chest. Meanwhile, the cabal's bluffing. But I think that's a good assumption. I've used the bluff assumption, but it's a better way almost to look at it, is that the game is ongoing, and in each round, it's more like, thinking about Texas Hold'em, except we know what cards are coming. Right? So we already had a good hand, and then each card that comes out is a better hand, and each card for them is a worse hand. And so they keep bluffing every single round of play. And that Trump could put it all in at first, but then they wouldn't lose all their chips. Now they're going to lose all their chips, because it keeps getting dragged out more and more and more. So peeps, it's going fine. It's going fine, but you're going to get propaganda hit at you nonstop. You're going to get propaganda hit at you. They're going to tell you that he's not going to be able to pull it off. They're going to tell you it's not going to happen. They're going to tell you that he's going to lose. And all of it's not true. There's not a single bit of truth to it. And if there is some real little hiccup, rest assured it's going to get taken care of. Georgia recount, okay? By early next week, that's going to be scrapped and changed. Because that Secretary of State is shitting himself right now, okay? The governor, the Secretary of State in Georgia, they are terrified. They're terrified because they thought that they could slip a fast one here. We're going to do a fake recount. Oh, and all the MAGA idiots are just not, they're going to accept it, and we're going to, no, sorry, we're not idiots. We pay attention to everything that you're doing. So when you try to lie, when you try to blow some shit at us, Trump's going to see through it, and we're going to see through it. Good luck. Good luck leaving the State House if you try to fuck up that recount. Good luck. There's 1 million Trump supporters in D.C. right now. And if Trump told them to go to the State House and citizen arrest people, you better believe it would have happened. Okay? He's not going to do that. But this is implicit. This is the point of doing the rallies. The rallies are not threats. The rallies are implicit threats. They're not explicit threats. They're implicit threats. They're saying, yeah, I have hundreds of thousands. I have 1 million people I can call up to come down to your building whenever I want. So don't fuck around. Don't fuck with us. He can go through the law. He doesn't have to go through the law. He will, but he doesn't have to. And so I think it's very good to have that sort of implicit idea that, look, if you think my supporters are going to take this, they're not going to take it. And then they're spineless, right? The reason they're doing it to begin with is that they're spineless. So you think that when they see this kind of show of support, that you think that when the governor and Secretary of State's phone lines are 24/7 bombarded with angry Trump supporters saying, are you seriously not going to give a recount? Every single one of their tweets, their Twitter accounts are bombarded with messages, they're backing off, guys. They're backing off. And so that's why when you see this kind of this dark shit going on, don't be afraid of it. Don't worry about it. It's not to say that we ignore it. We call it out. We take action, right? But the point here is that don't think the way that this works, everything that they've been able to do in the shadows, which is why when we shine a light on everything they do, they can't escape. They're ruined. It's like they literally melt in the sunlight. All of the evil plans disappear in the sunlight. And guys, a little aside here, but this is the same way it works with growth. Okay, that's why awareness is everything. You can have problems. Problems don't matter. But when you bring awareness, which is light, when you bring light to the problems, light to the shadow, then the shadow stops becoming this big problem. Okay, I work on this stuff with clients. I bring all this stuff to the light. It's the same thing on the macro scale. There's no way they get away with it because we know all of it. It all comes out. So I'm very happy whenever I see a criminal lie. I'm happy because everybody sees the lie now, and then the criminal gets outed. That's another person who goes to jail. That's another person who has to backtrack and do what we say if he doesn't want to go to jail. That's how we win. We win with the truth. That's it. Trump's the great revealer. We are the great revealers. And together, we're all doing it. Right now, we're at the point, it's not just Trump doing this. We are the great awakening. We are spreading the truth. People think it's like you go on social media and you tweet stuff. It's stupid. You're a keyboard warrior. Look, people need to understand how warfare's changed, how we are now in, this is fourth generation warfare, fourth dimensional warfare. It's psychological warfare. That's what it is. Most of the war is fought on propaganda right now. And actually, ideally, it will stay there because otherwise it goes to 3D, it goes to physical. But we fight this war, as Flynn said, digital soldiers, we do this now because we are making a difference. We are actually making a difference. Sounds lame, but it's true. All right, let me look at some of these questions. Trump had a meeting and left out Haspel. I thought that was overlooked. Who's Haspel? They are terrified on the subconscious level. That's it. I mean, that's why they come in. I said this before. I would never go to some lefty thing and I would never be like, why would I waste my energy doing it? Why would I bother with it? But all they can do is say you're a conspiracy theorist. You're a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, I mean, they just want to feel better about themselves. Where can I learn more about 5D? Can you recommend any books or the resources? I get this asked a lot. I'll do the best I can. So this is not meant to be a dismissive thing, okay? And I am going to give you guys some stuff, but this is not, it's going to be easier. It's a lot easier now because there's so many more people waking up to it. But the journey into the esoteric, okay, first off, you can't just tell people these things. You can't just tell it. It requires, even more so than with other information, it requires an extremely active degree of learning. You have to be very curious. You have to want to know it. And you have to do the work on your own to find out about it. Okay, so there are some certain resources that I can recommend to people, certain individuals whose channels to follow. But nobody, people don't just say, oh, here's 5D, and you listen to people talk about it, you kind of get your own awareness of it, because the point here is to open yourself up, not just be intellectual, to open yourself up to feeling it. And to feel it, you have to really do the dive. There's a great guy on Twitter, Lloyd, Business and Bullets. Some of you guys remember Captain Pronoid in here, right? The three of us had a conversation. It was kind of like back in like 2017 or 2018. It's a long time ago. And Lloyd is really really steeped in esoteric, and I was just getting into it. And the three of us were all talking. It was an amazing little podcast, but it was very frustrating because I wanted to learn a lot more from Lloyd, but he was keeping it to his chest, and it was a little bit annoying. But as time went on, I understood, because people need to do more on their own. Like, I can't tell you how many random videos, random people I followed. What would happen is that somebody will say something. I'm like, what does that mean? And then I'd follow them. I'd listen to them more. And then I'd see that they listened to somebody else, and I'd listen to that. Or they read this book. So it's a very, like, there's not a linear journey to this. I can't just say, listen to this person and you're going to get it. You need to, like, allow your curiosity to guide you into it. That said, some people who I think have talked about it well. There's a woman called Lori Ladd, Ladd. There's, of course, Magenta Pixie. And in terms of esoterics in general, I think Manly P. Hall is a very good introductory resource to understanding the basics of kind of left and right hand path, occultism. There's a lot of different things. You know, the Magdalene Manuscript for me was probably my book that woke me up. But would that be a book that'll wake up other people? Maybe not. Maybe not. So you have to just, like, I'm happy to help, but also just be curious. I retweet a lot of people. And if you're curious, if you really want to know, and I'm not trying to be gamey here, but if you really want to know, I have already provided plenty of directions for you to take to learn about these things. Yep, I am getting really tired of the corruption. The corruption's so bad right now, and that's the frustrating thing, is that you have people here who still don't seem to get it. They still, like, care about Biden. You know, they care so much about Biden winning against Trump. It's like, do you understand how corrupt our system's become? How corrupt your party is? Like, does that not even bother you a little bit? But they're fucking idiots. And again, if they had gotten Biden, they would have undergone a communist revolution, and it would have been terrible. 90% of them would have hated it, and they would have had that guilt on their shoulders the rest of their life. Now they're just going to have the guilt of knowing they supported the wrong side, the shame of that. But it's all right. I forgive them for that. I will forgive them when they wake up. Sidney Powell, right? Unleash the Kraken. Sidney Powell is brilliant and probably going to be the next head of the FBI or whatever replaces the FBI. Personally, I would just get rid of the acronyms FBI and CIA. I think that they're too spoiled. They're too soiled, rather. Make a completely new agency. Just get rid of it. Rehire the agents who you knew were good, and just get rid of the entire thing, because the reputation of it is too bad now. There's no legacy you want to keep. There's no historical legacy of it. They're such disgusting organizations. They've been doing disgusting things almost since the very beginning, maybe even the very beginning of their creation, that I don't want to continue with them. I want them out. I want create a new acronym. It's very easy to create a new acronym. Make a whole new intelligence agency that deals with these things. But yeah, Sidney Powell's amazing, Flynn's lawyer, and she knows. She knows. She knows. Masters of Projection. Yep, Fox News falling apart. Oh yeah, Sydney knows her shit. She knows her shit. Yeah, guys, but don't worry about the betting markets. As I said, it's going to be dealt with. It's going to be dealt with. Don't stress. Don't stress. All right, let's see here. Well, you may have lost it right now, but it's going to come back. The thing is, they can't actually. It's not going to hold up in court, right? We're not talking about them getting, like, you winning even on a technicality. We're talking about the fact that the vote totals that they tabulated were wrong. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the fact that if you said Trump's going to win California, and it's because you knew what the actual votes were in California, and then the media projected with all the fraud, and they were in on the fraud, especially when it comes up that the media was in on it. I mean, how are they going to hold up with that in court? Well, all the media agencies said this stuff. Yeah, but the media agencies were coordinated with the fraud. So how are you going to not pay out bets to people who were in on the racket? Like, there's just no way it holds up in court, guys. So don't worry about it. They're going to pay it out. They just don't want to admit. Some of them don't want to admit it. And frankly, they are admitting it now. They're already saying like, well, if things change, we'll deal with it. Let's see here. I don't play chess. I don't actually think California is blue. I don't think California is blue. We saw enormous rallies there for Trump. Okay. The state is terribly run. None of the propositions that they put forward, like, they all failed by enormous margins. Okay. And 9.7 million ballots are missing. 9.7 million ballots are missing in California. And I have seen anecdotally that almost all of them are Trump. I mean, they're all Trump supporters. Trump supporters can't find their ballots. Okay. And this is what happens. I said this before. Inner cities don't vote nearly as much as they say they do. Most of it's fraud. And they've been stuffing ballots after elections for a while. Once they get to a certain degree of control in the state, they just become corrupt, and then they own the state. And this is the case with these hard blue states. You notice that in the red states, there's not really so many super hard red states. It's a lot closer. Okay, but the blue ones, it's not close. It's just like 100% blue. That's fraud. Okay, it's fraud. It's not the case. It's not the reality. There are tons and tons of conservatives. And when you have a state like California, which has so many Hispanics, if Trump is getting like 50% of Hispanics or very close, and he's getting like an overwhelming number of other people in the state, right? Like other like white people in the state. Okay, sorry, but California goes red. And even if it doesn't go red, you better believe that enormous number of the House races are going red. That's just the way it is. It's the way it is. Fraud has manipulated our perceptions of things. Let's give an example of some bellwethers, so to speak. There are a couple counties in southwestern Texas. This is a very, very poor part of Texas. It's right on the border with Mexico, and it's pretty much like 90% Hispanic. Okay, like 90% Hispanic. Went to Clinton like 70-30 in more. No, I think it was like 80% it went to Clinton. 70-80% to Clinton in 2016. Trump won or pretty much split these counties in 2020 because there was no fraud there. They didn't think it was necessary. Because remember, most of the fraud came in two forms. You had other things, the maiden names, etc. But most of the fraud came from the voting machines, which mostly targeted Trump supporters, which don't make any sense. With the data, it doesn't make any sense that Trump supporters didn't vote for Trump, but tons and tons of lefties did. So there's that. But the second thing is just the ballot stuffing after the fact in only specific counties, right? So these kind of smaller counties that don't have a ton of population, but they're all Hispanic, they voted for Trump or like just split. Okay, so Trump basically is splitting the Hispanic vote, whereas normally a Republican would get 30%. Okay, it's an enormous increase, right? He's basically like, it's almost doubled what a Republican might expect to get from the Hispanic vote, just like he's almost doubled what a Republican might expect to get from the black vote. And he's also split educated whites, and he's overrun the table with working class whites who are coming out in droves. So it was a landslide election. It was an easy win. And so California might have literally turned red. It might have. New York might have too. I mean, I'm not saying a 50 state red thing. I'm not going that far. I'm just saying that, let me give you an example here. So I've said before, I predicted 326, right? Which was everything from 2016 plus New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Nevada. Okay. Let's put this in perspective here. Richard Barris basically said that was possible. right? Richard Barris was basically saying that was probably the most like ambitious thing that Trump could hope for. But now we're seeing a lot of evidence that actually Trump probably won Virginia. Okay, a lot of fraud in Virginia. Virginia, in some ways, because people are paying attention to the fraud in Northern Virginia, might have been red. And this brings up something because how pollsters, even Richard Barris, who's brilliant, they estimate what will be based on what has been. So they understand how a county's voted in the past. And so then they're able to tell you, okay, well, the county voted like this in the past, and therefore it's going to, you know, it's going to either decrease 10% based on these variables, or it's going to go up 10% based on these variables, right? These are the kind of things that they do. And it's very educated, it's very smart. But there's an assumption in here. And it's this assumption that leads to the complete transformation and the possibility that maybe actually a ton of states turn red, like California, like New York. What's that assumption? The assumption is that the vote totals you are seeing in these Democrat-run cities were accurate and not fraud for like at least a decade or 20 years. So if actually you like in this investigation, because I've been saying this, 2/3 of the fraud in this election were just this election, but 1/3 has been going on for like at least 20 years. And that's why you see states like New York and California, which despite being run worse and worse, seem more and more blue. That's not how people work. Okay? People don't, there are crazy people, but that's not how people work. There's a natural tendency when a state is poorly run for people to move against it. And so even if you didn't see the state flip, you would see it get closer. You would see it get closer. And you don't see that. You see it almost as if nothing changes ever. That's fraud. And in the course of this investigation, Republicans wouldn't fight it. They wouldn't fight this in the past. And so if you take that assumption and you say like, well, actually, you know, LA County never was actually getting that many votes. They were never actually, the votes were fake. And now we've called it out. Then the assumptions about where a state's going to go completely change. Because you realize that Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, we're just making up shit all the time and padding the numbers. Very important. It's very, very important. So that's the piece that would change everything. And again, I'll emphasize, in California right now, 9.7 million ballots are missing. That is a lot of ballots. The state has a population of like 37 million, 37 to 40 million, right? And of course, there's tons of illegals. So we'll say 35 million. Okay. This is like, it's almost like they got rid of half the votes in the state. Pretty substantial, okay? I don't know if it's actually going to be 9.7 at the end of the day, but the fact that that is like right now what appears to be missing is really crazy. Sydney did imply that things might go beyond the deadline, but I don't think it's going to apply to Trump. I think it's going to be very clear that Trump won by the 14th. I think it's going to be clear. Because we're talking about just, he has to prove it in 2 states right now that everyone's focused on. He proves it in Michigan and Pennsylvania, he's the president. That's it. Every other state can come afterwards. Let's keep going down here. She said if states certified before December 14th, given the corruption, they'll be added as defendants. That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, makes sense. Why did Trump's own Department of Homeland Security say the election was totally secure, mostly Trump appointments? Well, it was very interesting. Well, first off, the press release that everybody saw was actually like the advisory board. Okay, so you had Ward was fired pretty much immediately. And this was actually a Q post, right? You know the expression on Q, nothing can stop what is coming. Well, apparently this was like nothing can't NCSIS, right? I think whatever. You guys know what I'm trying to say. It's the acronym, right? That this was actually connected to that's the agency. That's connected to the CISA agency. But all these people were fired. Like they were fired, and anybody who kind of goes out gets fired immediately. And the people who made that release were actually not involved in the fraud investigations. As usual, it was a media psyop. They basically got a bunch of spooks who ran the advisory agency and just said, "Oh yeah, nothing happened." It wasn't actually the people who were dealing with it. People who had no direct inferences. It's just the usual bullshit. It's usual bullshit. Do you think Trump uses COVID and vaccine as metaphor for black hats and white hats? I've heard that COVID is actually used as a metaphor for communism. We talked about this a bit before, and that the virus is really communism, hence why he used 1917 instead of 1919. And no, actually, let's talk a little bit about COVID right now, because what's going on with COVID? I think this is worth talking about. In Europe, it's blown up big time. It started to blow up here too. You're seeing a lot of people getting COVID, a lot of people getting sick, more people going to the hospitals. What do I think about this? Okay. Well, first off, I think it's important to note that everybody gets sick this time of year. Okay. I mean, I don't get sick, but regularly people get sick this time of year. This is getting the flu season. You know, the sun's gone, right? As you move into October and certainly into November. And it makes sense also from the sunlight that Northern Europe would get it just a little bit before the United States. Northern Europe gets hit with it in October. America starts to get hit with it in November. Okay? Latitude, guys. And it happens every year. It happens every single year. So I'm, when I see that there's 0 influenza cases, or like, 2% of the normal influenza cases, and I see there's tons and tons of COVID cases, I'm immediately skeptical, especially when it's like, well, I lost my sense of taste and I lost my sense of smell. It's like, well, guess what? If you get a cold, you lose your sense of taste and you lose your sense of smell. So are you talking about that and you don't have a runny nose? If you can breathe perfectly clearly, you have no mucus whatsoever, but you lost your sense of taste and you lost your sense of smell, then maybe there's something there that's interesting, that's a little bit different. But if you can't breathe out your nose and you lost your sense of taste and you lost your sense of smell, guess what? That's because all of your taste buds are blocked by snot. And that happens with every single sickness you get. But it's very easy to just kind of say this like, oh, well, I got this stuff. Now, I will say this, okay? I have to be fair. Although I have not seen, I've heard more hospitalizations. What does that mean? Someone has a fever, so they get sent to the hospital because they have COVID. Like, does it mean that they're are we having the same kind of thing that we had in March, April, where people were going on ventilators because they couldn't breathe? I haven't heard anything about that. Okay, that's kind of interesting. If this was some more virulent version of COVID that was damaging people, why aren't we hearing about people who can't breathe like we did end of March and early April? But I have seen something, and I'm trying to be honest with you guys. I have seen something that's interesting, and I don't know if I can vouch for the full validity of it. But for instance, in Poland, which seems to be getting hit extra hard, it does seem like everybody's getting COVID. Now, again, could just be just like they would have gotten, it's a bad flu season, whatever, same deal. But from the graphs, it does seem like the number of people who are sick is way higher than in past years. Like the number of overall people who are sick or in the hospital, etc., way higher. So let's monitor it. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what happens. I am obviously skeptical about what's going on, but I don't want to just dismiss the stuff out of hand, because when I do see the numbers of people, like I think the way to tell is like, what's the overall number of people who are sick in a given year within a band, and where are we right now? And if the number of people who are dying is double than a previous year, then that's serious, right? Then that's something's going on then, and we have to figure out what's going on. But if it's the same amount, they're just labeling it differently with different diseases. They're all saying it's all COVID, then that doesn't count. So we're gonna see. All right, let's see here. In the COVID press conference yesterday, it sounded like Trump would have said next administration. We're talking about his next administration. Yeah, I mean, it's going to continue. Pence on autopilot for another 4 years. You know, I have to say though, I did watch the tail end of that the virus Operation Warp Speed, and I thought Pence did well. Pence seemed a little bit better than usual. Got nothing against Pence. You know, there's all sorts of conspiracies about Pence. Is Pence a clone? You know, I don't know if you guys have heard this. There's a very small section of the Q group who believe that Pence was cabal, and that Pence was doing, was involved with child trafficking as governor of Indiana, and that there was a situation where, Pence was going to become the president, and then there was some switch, and they talked about like Air Force Two's name changing on the flight parameters, and they said that Pence looked different when he came back, given the implication that he was a clone. Some of the people in Q are claiming that Pence is actually JFK Jr. right now. Okay, you really gotta. I want to say, I mean, hold it lightly, but maybe even more than that, like don't hold it at all. Some of these things can get really absurd. They can get really, really absurd, and it's important not to judge the entire group by some of these things. What is the basis to make these claims? What is the basis to make these kind of claims? It's just kind of silly to me. It's silly to me. I don't understand it. People are also talking about Trump's a clone now. You know, they came out with gray hair. Hey, maybe, but maybe even if it was a clone, couldn't you just dye the hair? You know what I mean? Couldn't you just dye the hair? Maybe Trump's been stressed and hasn't gotten his hair dyed. There's a lot of other explanations that you could give. And you guys know I'm super open. Like I'm super open to these things. But you gotta give a little bit. You gotta give like a little bit. You can't just like say shit that's completely off the wall without really any basis whatsoever. Trump has gray hair, therefore he's a clone. Please do better. Please do a little bit better with this. It may be true, but please do better in proving it than just saying he has gray hair. Earlobes are much better than gray hair because you can't change an earlobe, but hair color, come on. Yeah, Pompeo knows they're going to a second term. They're not even, the thing is, they're not going to give it up. And why should he? Why should he give it up? Trump doesn't want to give it up. They're going to keep saying that they should give it to Biden. Even if Trump didn't win in the courts, he shouldn't give it up. It's my perspective. I know people are going to think that's radical to say that. I don't want a communist takeover of my country. The thing is, I've gotten to a point where I know enough about this. I've studied enough about this. I understand them enough that I don't care. Like, I don't care. I understand what they're doing. Like, I'm not going to, if we're going to just give them control of the country, I'm out. I'm out. If everybody just decides we're going to let them take it over. Sorry, I'm going to be in Poland and I'm going to have a cabin in the mountains and I'm going to wait for it all to end because everybody just gives up then. But Trump's not going to give up. You know that. He's not going to. And there's plenty of people who support him. None of this stuff is going to happen. It's like so far removed from what could possibly happen at this point in the timeline. But, oh yeah, you better believe that when Trump's winning in the courts, they're going to say that he's stealing the election. He's subverting democracy. It's the usual playbook. Yep, next mass shooting. We're going to see that. Let's see here. How do we know all the cards in at this hand? So I've said something like this before. How do we know all the cards in the hands? People talk about in Q, they talk about trust the plan. And I mentioned this before. I just want to reiterate it for some people, new guys on here, people who still don't quite understand it. The plan, you could look at the plan from a perspective of, does Trump have looking glass technology? And since his intentions are pure, does he have access to be able to see things? Remember, the cabal created CERN to try to change the timeline when they couldn't change it anymore. They couldn't see any way to get their plans met. Trump probably has looking glass technology. So Trump probably does have some ability to plan these things ahead of time. which is why when we look back on people in Q, look at Melania's past tweets, they look at Trump's past tweets, you can see they're all predictive of things that are occurring now. Predictive to a point of difficulty to be coincidence. All of that said, we don't even need to take it that far. We can just simply say we understand at this point that that it doesn't have to be a plan like every single little thing is planned for. Like I think that that's probably taking it too far. Some disagree though. Some think it's actually the case, but it's taking it too far. My perspective is that there are a lot of general things that have been predicted, and then there's a lot of details. But the thing is, the overall arc of the outcome is known. So when we talk trust the plan, you could say trust God's plan. And some people will think that sounds cheesy, but the reality is that there is no energetic supporting their victory. They've lost that. And everything that happens in 5D filters down through the prior dimensions. It's just a matter of the lag time. That's it. That's just a matter of the lag time. Once a decision was made, and that decision was made a while ago, but it became very clearly made last spring. Once that decision is made, then there's no way that they win. There is no new world order going to happen because energetically there is nothing to support it. And people have to understand that. I know it's difficult because we get caught up in what's going on now, but that's what's happening. So it'll end one way or another. It'll end. The details are to be determined, but yeah, I don't even think he's going to last a couple of days. Well, Trump will say that the governor, I mean, he's now attacking the governor, but he'll say the governor's fine. He does it both ways. He basically says, which is a good negotiator, say, I'm going to compliment you, but if you don't do what I want, I'm going to destroy you. Right? That's a good negotiation, right? I can either inflate you, I can inflate your reputation, or I can tear it down. It's carrot and stick. So if you just attack somebody, then you don't give them as much of an incentive to come to your side. But if you say, I'm going to laud you as a great governor, I'm going to tell everybody you're a great governor. You're going to do the right thing, right? Because you're a great governor. Oh, you're not? Well, you're a terrible governor. You're the worst governor in America. In fact, we're going to get you removed from office. You're so bad. So you see how it works. It goes both directions. Trump praises people to incentivize good behavior from them. Yep, fake media's a message, demoralize, demonize. I don't, again, with the cabal, there's the Secretary of State probably is. There's cabal, and then there's weak people who have been maybe compromised by the cabal. There's some blackmail. They're used to losing various things. Yeah, the water pipe didn't exist. Oh, we had to stop counting because of the water pipe burst, which was completely made up. Water pipe burst allegedly. First, it was a water pipe burst. Then it was, a water pipe burst in a nearby building. And then it was like, there was no water pipe bursting. It's just like absolutely stupid. If military betrays Trump, does Trump call on his MAGA army to attack President Biden? Hey guys, if I'm trying to think of a good joke for this. There's no point in speculating on things that are so far removed from reality. I've said this a million times. 90% of combat units support Trump. So to say it's like, well, if the military doesn't support Trump, does Trump have to call on the population to support him? This is like a non-existent reality. It's a non-existent reality because the people who support Trump are mostly in the military. It's really just a couple of generals, upper brass, that don't really support him, and they have a couple of small dark sections, right? So it's kind of like a non-question, really. I mean, I'm not being mean or anything, but I'm just saying it's like we can talk about all these hypotheticals, but what's the point of talking about a hypothetical? It's like me saying, if my parents decide to tell the FBI about me and make up some crimes, what am I going to do? It's like, well, I mean, like I don't even understand. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's a non-existent scenario. So why speculate? Dude, if you have news about Ohio, just post it. Post it, my man. are reporting back no fraud, complete BS. I don't even believe this stuff. Like, I don't believe any of the shit. I don't believe it because it's obvious there's fraud. I mean, Giuliani laughs about this stuff. They have hundreds of affidavits at this point. They're gonna have to. I mean, the thing is, it'll just go to the Supreme Court. If like Georgia officials don't backtrack, then it'll just go to the Supreme Court. But they will backtrack because they're gonna have. I think they're gonna backtrack because there's so much pressure and so much focus on them. They're gonna break. Because here's the thing: if they're not full on cabal, they are influenced by cabal. They are intimidated by cabal, but it's the intimidation. So they're intimidated by the cabal, so they're trying to cheat to help the cabal. But when they have hundreds of thousands of MAGA supporters who know what they've done, well, that's intimidation too. And so suddenly they tell their handlers, you can't protect me anymore. I know I'm supposed to protect you, but you can't protect me. And that's how it falls apart for the cabal. Because these people are cowards. They're not brave people. They don't want to be hung at the stake. They don't want to be burned alive. They don't want to be hung in the gallows. So the Secretary of State in Georgia, do you think that if he goes ahead with this recount in a Republican state, do you think he's going to make it? Do you think he's going to make it? I mean that in multiple senses. I'm not saying as a threat. I'm just saying, do you think he's going to make it? How is the cabal going to protect him? They see the writing on the wall. They know where it's going. They're going to backtrack. I bet you 90% chance they backtrack. It's just going to happen because they're afraid. They can't do this stuff when people are paying attention. They were trying to thread the needle and say, well, we'll give the cabal what they want and, tell the MAGA supporters we're doing a recount. And they're like, no, you're lying. This isn't a real recount. And it's like, oh, fuck. It's all, oh, fuck. We're caught. Yeah, you're caught. Nothing you can do about it except do the right thing. Or we'll make you do the right thing. You want to be in a jail cell? They know where it's going, guys. They know where it's going. They know they're not going to win. They just don't want the cabal to kill them, so they're trying to do the right shit. Netanyahu is gone. I mean, they always said Israel's safe for last. Netanyahu is always bad, but we're going to see what happens with that. We're going to see how it plays out. I love that. Pole living in Swedistan. I love it. A lot of Poles living in Sweden, by the way. And to be fair, as a Pole, you have to be fair. Sweden and the UK were the only countries in Europe after the Soviet Union collapsed to allow Poles to work there. So it was, sorry, not after the Soviet Union collapsed, but no, yeah, that's actually right. After the Soviet Union collapsed, other Poles couldn't work elsewhere in Europe until they joined the European Union. So got to give some credit where credit's due. That's why there's so many Poles in the UK, by the way, because in the early 90s, UK allowed Poles to work without stipulations in the UK. So it was a place to get money. Now, a lot of Poles work in Germany, as well as the UK, right? But a lot more work in Germany, especially in Western Poland, because it's obviously very close. In all honesty, the infrastructure in Western Poland is in some ways more tied to Germany than it is to the rest of Poland. And that part of Poland was Germany in the past, so it's kind of interesting how that whole thing works. I'll have to look up Gina Haspel. I'm not really familiar with her. Yeah, NCSWIC. Oh, director of CIA. That's interesting. Okay. Well, California and New York were red for a long time. And California was one of the most Republican states in the nation until Reagan's amnesty in the 80s. But again, that's just Hispanics. If you flip Hispanics, there was a Republican governor, even Schwarzenegger was Republican governor back in the 2000s. And New York had Giuliani as mayor. And Bloomberg ran as a Republican at first and then became independent. So you get to understand this stuff is really like 20 years old. I mean, the full corruption of these states is 20 years old. Why did Trump drive through the motorcade instead of giving a speech? I don't know. Maybe it was a clone. I actually don't know. I did hear Antifa was attacking people in D.C. One of the reasons I didn't go, by the way, because my wife's 8 months pregnant, so we're not trying to get involved too directly in the action right now. China's not a superpower. Loser state. Yep, conspiracy theorist was a term conceived by the CIA to discredit people's JFK research. 100%. Okay, let's keep going down here. Yep, they like using the dominions. They like being dominated. They like being dominated. They love being dominated. This duopoly. Sophia's wonderful. Yeah, I love Sophia. She's super integrated. Super integrated woman. In the spirituality community, is extremely uncommon, by the way, to have women who are as grounded in their like masculine back to feminine again. It just doesn't happen very much. Most of them are full of shit, to be honest. I'm living around the New York, New Jersey area. I'll just say that. We're dealing with it fine. I mean, New York City's falling apart, so. لا أتذكر how do you say it? لا أتذكر I'm forgetting a word. بالعربية. I don't remember how to speak Arabic, as I was trying to say. I actually don't remember how to speak Arabic. I blocked it out. Once I left the studies, I didn't, like, everything just left my mind pretty much. Yeah, Antifa's coming out at night, right? They're all in the shadows. They come out in the shadows. They can't deal with the sunlight. Well, you can bet on predict it. What if? Stop asking these questions, guys. What if? What if they win? What if they do this? What if they do this? You just fight. You push. You win. You win. Who cares? Who cares what they do? They're gonna lose. Let them do anything. Let them do anything. Okay, guys. I want you to understand this. We win this regardless. We win it legally. And if they try to steal it legally, we win it otherwise. We win it regardless. They do not have a chance of success unless we give up. That's it. Does not matter what they do. Get that through your heads. It does not matter what they do. They are in the wrong, and they don't have the power. They don't have the proof, and they don't have the force. We win regardless. Because we are backed by divine will. And everything else. All they can do is tell you we can't do it. That's all they can say. We're gonna make you demoralized. We're gonna make you feel like you can't get it happen. We're gonna make you feel. Nope. Doesn't work that way. Yeah, they want to say Texas was going blue. I mean, they stole half the vote. Trump won Texas by probably 15%. I mean, easily 10%. And they're saying he won it by 5. It's ridiculous. But that's what you have, these things like Harris County around Houston. It's going to come out. This is exactly right. In California, all left-wing propositions failed, and we picked up seats in the House, but Trump only got 33%. Yeah, I think that they literally stole half of Trump's votes. I think they literally stole half of his votes. Or they stole 50% of his votes. But 50% of Republican votes were stolen in California. There's no question about it. There are not enough Karens to keep these states blue, 100%. Guys, there was nothing on there's nothing on the Democratic platform that was worth fighting for. Like, it doesn't make any sense. All the fundamentals, every fundamental that's ever, there's never been worse fundamentals against a party candidate than Biden. And they're saying he won more than Obama. Does not make any sense. You have to be a fucking idiot to think that it makes sense. That's exactly right. They're a minority party, and now they're a massive minority, and the media has protected them as a majority. Well, right, it's like voter ID. I mean, now you have to get a vaccine to go into a concert, but you can't get a voter ID. Like India has a voter ID. Like a country with 1 billion people has a voter ID. Like it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's all BS. Think there's any fraud with De Blasio? I mean, is the sky blue? I need to go back and get an education. I went to UPenn, you fucking idiot. To an Ivy League school, and you tell me to get an education? Let's see here. We had the most extensive fraud optimization. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100K loan and yeah, student loan and can't spell. I mean, it's exactly right. These people, they're just stupid. They're just stupid. Like I graduated in the top like 15% at an Ivy League school, and they're gonna tell me I'm stupid. Like you need to get an education. And the reality is that a lot of the Ivy League people are completely deluded. But it's just like to talk about the education doesn't matter. The education is in many ways garbage. But it's like it's hilarious. These people, absolutely hilarious. Yes Way TV. It's kind of sketchy. I'm not gonna lie. Block Mr. White. I didn't read Dr. Napoleon's book on COVID-19. Hey guys, I'll tell you a little bit. I mentioned this before with Dr. Napoleon. I told you about the book, Shadow Men, definitely get it. Napoleon was completely involved with Cabal activity, a different branch of the Cabal, probably the white hat branch, the right-hand path of the Cabal, rather than the left-hand path. He describes it differently. But guys, I have to tell you this, okay? Dr. Napoleon's broken. He's a broken man. I don't say this as like a defamatory thing, but it's very clear if you listen to him, you can see that he's just seen too much. He has enormous amounts of trauma from the work that he's done. He's legit, but he's traumatized heavily. I don't care if you're vegan or whatever. I don't give a shit. I support animal right. I mean, I hate animal cruelty. I hate all this stuff, but you can tell that he's inflicted through his psychological operations a lot of pain on people, and he also has a lot of contempt for the average individual. And he's not part of the awakening. Like he's not connected with that. He's very much stuck in an old paradigm where you can't, that you guys are all retards and they're going to keep taking advantage of you. And he's just so angry and he's so bitter and he's so filled with, I think in a lot of ways he's so filled with disgust about everything. And I think including himself. So he's very intelligent. He's in the know, at least historically in the know. But I would not trust him to tell you about things that are going on right now, because by his own admission, he's supposed to be out of the loop. So, yeah, you can hit me in a DM about Poland Travel Guide. I'm happy to help. I'm required to get a ding positive test a week later. Yeah, flu vaccine and COVID is not very good, by the way. It tends to be associated with each other. I am reading it from 20 minutes ago. I'm trying to go through, trying to help everybody here, Trump is really a woman. Do I live in my parents' house? Look at this guy. If you live at your parents' house, if you're convinced Trump is going to win, you want to put money on it. Look at these people. You guys know you would have put money on it if you're convinced Trump's going to win. It's just like it's too funny. It's too funny. Coward. Yeah, I'm a coward. I haven't put money on Trump, guys. I didn't put any money on Trump. No money on Trump, It's too funny, guys. It's too funny. Bet me, coward. keep going down here. Let's keep going down here. Let's see here. Let's see. 40 out of 50 states. That's probably, it could be right. Could be right. My degree was I was pretty easy degree, all things considered. Although I was magna cum laude, and I had honors in political science and history, with a minor in Middle Eastern studies, so like Arabic, etc. So there are way smarter people at Penn than me, way smarter people. I mean, there were some people there that were just like unbelievably intelligent. It was hard to imagine. It's absolutely hard to imagine. But yeah, guys, we got some cool stuff here. We got some cool stuff. So I think we're gonna do the next one on Monday. All right. So enjoy the rest of the weekend. Hopefully, we'll see some fireworks on Monday, but it's gonna be happening one way or another. Take care, guys. I'll see you.